Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Helping Friendly podcast. I'm Megan. I'm here with two friends today. I'm here with RJ and Matt. How are you guys?
I'm
Doing great.
great. I'm great.
Yeah.
Matt is wearing his jersey. Do you wear your jersey for every game?
I have been because it's been working. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know how it is.
Yeah, lucky.
You don't want
If
to you
they
don't want to
were,
fuck it up.
I have a red Phillies hoodie that I wear when I walk my daughter to school every morning. And then I put this on for the game every night. And it's working. So, unless they start to lose, I'm going to go with this. I also like this room. I need to like clean and vacuum so much, but I don't want to because I don't want to like accidentally suck some magic out of the whole thing. So, um,
Yeah,
yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
I
Yeah.
sound like a crazy person, but some
Nah,
people
man.
probably get it.
No, I get it. Totally get it. I like the Go Phillies in your name there too.
I
Everything counts.
it
Yeah.
does. I had a I have a shirt. I wear the same t-shirt for every single Ohio State football game, and I have for I don't know, like 10 years. Like every game. And if I don't have it, like there's no option to not wear it. So, I get it. Also last week, Matt, in the Penn State game, there was a moment where I walked across the room. I was pacing the entire game cuz it was a pretty intense game. And then at some point something good happened and I was standing in the corner of the room, and so then I couldn't leave that corner of the room for the rest of the game. I had to like stay right there because I don't want to like upset the energy, it's serious. It's serious business. You got to pay
You're
attention
so
to it.
superstitious. I love it. This is
You just
something I'm learning about both of you.
Yeah, you don't want to mess it up. You don't want to be
Nope.
responsible,
Nope.
just because I had to go like get a beer and then like they fuck up, that's my fault.
No, that's what you have kids for. They can deliver
Yeah.
that
I
stuff to
mean,
you.
Exactly.
we don't have to dwell on this, but I will mention one thing. So, at the last game of the National League Championship Series, I was mostly watching the game alone, and my wife and my daughter came into the room, and my cat jumped on my lap like all at the same time. And then Bryce Harper hit his 2-run home run to send them into the World Series. And then last night I was sitting here waiting for them, and they came down and they jumped on the couch, and the cat jumped on my lap, and Bryce Harper hit another home run. So there was a
What?
moment where I was like, I'm holding you guys hostage. You can't go to
Yeah.
sleep.
Yeah. It's
Or just
amazing.
keep jumping in here, like leave and then
Yeah.
come in again.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Thanks. I'll
Which
tell
is
you when we're up to bat.
which is better than the
Exactly.
alternative where you have to tell them they absolutely cannot come in the room under any circumstances, which is a
I mean, that wouldn't
possibility.
be awful.
Well, I just mean
Yeah.
it would be harder for you to pull off. I've had that
Yes,
before where I'm
yes,
like, don't
yes.
don't don't come
Get
in the
out.
room.
Yeah.
Um, Matt, thanks for joining us. You're back.
I mean, I never really went anywhere.
That's a good
I've been
point.
here. I've been
That's a
here.
good point. That's a good point. This is
Yeah,
fun.
it's
This is going to be
awesome
a
to
good
have
one.
you. I'm so
Well,
glad you
thank
came.
you.
We have a lot to talk about today because we're going to talk about all four Vegas shows from last year. And we had to add this in because we're very on the moment because there was a studio album drop 2 days ago. Crazy. Did anybody know about this? I didn't hear anything about this before it happened. Seems like it was a pretty big secret.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that it existed. I didn't know that they were going to ever release it, but and it was obviously a surprise, and they did it in the most fishy way with like no fanfare at all, just announced through an Instagram account, and it was just there. So yeah, I've been having some fun listening to it for the past couple days.
Yeah, it's pretty it's pretty strange. I mean, it didn't get any less strange than it was last Halloween. So I guess that's part of the deal. Which we're gonna get into it because I think we have differing opinions. Jonathan couldn't be here today, but he has very strong opinions. So we're gonna get to it for sure.
Yeah, well, that's what you get if you can't come. You don't get to defend your opinion. So we'll be able to share ours, and Jonathan will just have to be sitting home like, no, if he disagrees with us, which I think he might. So that's kind of fun. Well, before we start, we want to remind everyone to subscribe to Osiris Media on Apple for HF Premium, HF Pod Premium, and also we have a new premium offering through Memberful. So check that out. You can look at osiris.memberful.com/join. And that's a great way to support us and what we're doing here at Osiris.
Thanks for saying that, Megan. And I will put the link in the show notes for anyone who wants to learn more. You get all kinds of bonus stuff and ad-free things and all that. So Matt, did you go to all four of these Vegas shows?
I did. And by the way, I put a lot of work into that thing, that premium thing. So you guys better sign up.
Yes, I like the threats. That's perfect. That'll motivate people, Matt.
No, it's funny. We get an email every time somebody signs up, and it's like a little dopamine hit every single time I see somebody sign up. So keep me happy, keep me high. But yeah, this was I did see all 4 nights of this run. I don't always do all 4 nights of a run. I think I was just thinking about this, and I think it's maybe like only like 6 or 7 times ever have I done like 4 nights in a row. And I also think, not to like, spoil my own lead here, but like I think it's probably the best 4 night run that I've ever seen. It was amazing.
Yeah, I think each of the shows had really, really strong moments, and some of them were pretty strong from start to finish, in my opinion. Yeah. 4 nights too is a lot, and in Vegas, no less. I mean, I did 4 nights at MSG in April, and by the last night, I think it was like a Bowie encore, and I was so tired, and I was like, it's Bowie encore, and I was like, I got to keep going. So I was just like dying, but 4 nights is tough.
It's really hard. I think in Lawn Memo tuning in, thank you. Hey Mike, is Matt a model? Yes, he is. That's why we bring him on camera. I mean, why else? There is so much. I mean, man, the fact that they had, first of all, three of the 4 nights had like themes or thematic elements is just really impressive for a band at this point in their career. That's one of the things that like you talking about, Matt, just like the quality of it. But it's just crazy that they pulled off like three separate like stunts. Three out of the 4 nights. Then the night when they didn't do that, which was just like a really awesome show. So
Yeah,
I
and this
think
is coming off of like a pretty packed run where they were
yeah, that's
traveling a
true.
lot, right? Which is what we've been talking about too. There was one night off between the Forum and the first night of Vegas. And that's just crazy. And they come in and I mean, they obviously were rehearsing and putting a lot of thought into this run. So it shows.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately for me, the first night is the one that I missed. So I went to the other three, and I think this was probably the best night of the run. Well, just like the concept is funny, but also, just to jump into it. I mean, to start off with a 17-minute 2001 and then a 15-minute version of 1999, that's like a pretty amazing way to start. Matt, what did everyone knew the number thing like pretty like well into the first set, or how did that unfold for you?
Yeah, I'm not usually great at identifying those. Um, like I haven't been to that many of the like set list uh theme shows. I tend to somehow miss them at Dick's. I was at like the Lushington one, and I had no idea what was going on until like the next day when I read about it in Jam Base or something like that.
Yeah,
But
that'd be me.
it was very easy to see at this show, like, oh yeah, like at first we're like, wow, like Killer 2001, oh my god, 1999. Then it was like, oh okay, I see what they're doing here. Um, and yeah, I mean, everybody was kind of tuned in and like trying to figure out like, was there some sort of like sequence to the numbers, which there was, and like, what does it all mean? Um, but then honestly, I thought that that was kind of like a night one treat, and nothing else would happen for the rest of the run other than the costume. And I was super glad to be wrong.
Yeah, I think that this is one of my favorite first sets I've heard in a really long time. It's definitely one of my most favorite show openings ever. 30 minutes of just like dancey, funky, like hard hitting joy. Like you can hear how loud that venue is throughout, even on the live fish recording. Like it's so, people must have just been going crazy. I feel like this 2001 is just off the charts, spooky, like 7 minute long intro, and then just totally amazing way to jam it. Just super awesome opening. And then 1999, like only played it 3 times, and it's just so good. They sound so happy when they're singing it too. It's so fun. But
Yeah.
I think this first set's just awesome. And then I think there's some really strong moments in the second set too. What were kind of like your highlights, Matt?
I'm muted. Ha. Definitely the 2001, which was the most kind of jammed out one of the more jammier 2001s in quite a while. That was pretty amazing, as well as 1999. I had forgotten how hard 1999 went until I was just listening to the show a little while ago. I mean, you've got like between the two of them a solid 30-minute dance party, like you were saying, Megan. I mean, it was pretty amazing. Always love hearing Strawberry Letter 23 as well. So those were all good. I think the bulk of my highlights were probably in the second set. But this is one of those shows, and it's part of a tour where like there really weren't any lulls or downtime. Even the 46 days and 555 and stuff. Like the way I describe it when they're on at this level on any given tour is it's like you're not really thinking about what songs they're playing. It's more like they step on stage and they start playing, and there's these islands of song that they kind of reach every once in a while, but then it's just back into the continuum of the jam and finding the next place where they needed to go. So it's a surprisingly fluid first set with very little downtime and a whole lot of just continuing in that groove, in the flow of what they'd established throughout the whole tour.
Yeah. I mean, also like the Sci-Fi Soldier jamming, just the sounds are fully present at the beginning of the show, which we didn't know at the time, but it was like just the effects and the way they were just the way they were jamming was just, it's really, I think it's pretty clearly reflected in the 1031 set too, right? Which we obviously didn't know at the time, but we knew that something was influencing them. And I don't know, that's the whole show is crazy. I mean, even this, like you mentioned, the Seven Below in the second set, Megan, to start it. It's pretty out there, and it does feel like even more so in this run, Matt, that it's like the island of songs. Like I don't know, like the Seven Below is not even really Seven Below in the traditional sense. It just like kicks off, and we're in a totally different place.
Yeah, which is a good point, because I used to love Seven Belows back in like 2.0 when it was a new song and they would really take it deep. And they haven't done a whole lot of that in 3.0. I mean, it's such a cool groove and they do a nice job with it, but they never really kind of go off like they used to. And this one gets off the rails really quickly and is a completely different beast by the time you get to If Six Was Nine. Yeah, I mean, it was a really great start to the set.
Yeah, it's very exploratory, that Seven Below jam. And then they jam out If Six Was Nine. I mean, that's what's crazy, is that they just like continue to keep jamming out even these major bust outs. But for me, the highlight of the second set, or the highlights, I feel like this 5 years, I just think this Bowie cover is so beautiful. It's such an incredible song. And it's so great to hear them. They sound awesome. And I never knew if they would play that again. They haven't played it since 2016, since the album. And I also love Two Versions of Me in this set. It's only been played 8 times, 6 of them were in 2003. And I feel like now they're vocally ready for this song. I feel like back in early 2000s, they weren't. And now they can actually like really sing and deliver this song in a way that sounds great. I think it's nice. It's like really sophisticated. They should bring this one back, play it more often, I think.
Yeah, they also kind of managed to shake off the stigma around the song, because like when they were playing it back in 2003, 2004, it has that line, "No more fish in the sea." And it was very like kind of like weird and eerie. And now I felt like they were kind of like reclaiming it. Like it's got a different meaning. So that was awesome. And yeah, I have to agree. If Six Was Nine and 5 years back to back were like so amazing. What was incredible is like If Six Was Nine, it's such an iconic Hendrix song, like within them playing the opening beat to it, the crowd like instantly knew what it was. Everybody started flipping
That's
out
the
right
best.
because they never played it before. And I mean, it wasn't like it was something we were expecting. Everybody just kind of knew right away, like, oh yeah. And 5 years, I have to agree, like I love that song so much. They played the hell out of it. So that was a nice little kind of like cover Halloweenish combo in the middle of the set. It was great. And then Two Versions of Me jams out and goes into NO2, which is like, who expected
Huge
that?
bust out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and the flow of this whole show works really well, considering especially that it's like a gag, that it all has to go in a certain order. It's kind of amazing the way that it flows.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 5 years they've only played that twice, both in that building, right? Once
Hmm.
this
Oh
Halloween and
yeah.
once the other for Halloween. It's really cool, and it's interesting looking at the jam charts on Fishnet, just because like two versions of me is on there, and there's other songs from this run that are on there that are like you wouldn't normally see, and in addition to like the jammed out 555 and um what a night. I remember the next morning I was flying out to Vegas for the rest of the shows, and I was like, shit, definitely missed the best
Yeah.
show. Uh, which tends to happen, but I don't know. The second night is also like one of my favorite shows of the last 5 years for sure. That I think, just jumping to 1029. I mean, that Axela Part Two jam that just like really blew my mind. And I think that we talked about that last week, Megan, like with these fall 2021 shows where like basically anything can be jammed, and it might happen in the first set. A lot of times it was happening in the first set, but man, that is a huge jam to start off this set, and this whole set is really great.
Absolutely. And Excellent Part Two, this is just like when it starts coming back, right? And now it's just been jammed out a bunch and it's just always awesome. I love it so much more than Excellent Part One. I think the lyrics are so much better. That jam is incredible. The way that it kind of devolves into the end and how like it goes into that awesome part where Trey's like, "Don't shine that shit in my face." And then it becomes that like, "Hello, how are you?" joke that they're going to continue. I think it's masterful. It's really cool. I think this set's amazing. The Mike's groove is absolutely unbelievable. Trey is like putting those pedal effects to really good use. Really funky. Just a great week of Pog. Just really, really good.
It's a wild set, man. Matt, what
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean the hello, how are you thing, which I think officially is called like Little Squirrel or something like that, that's kind of like what I was talking about before, like how they're able to, when they're really on, slip back into like the jam mode right away. And like another way to look at it, which is a more kind of like concrete version, like we're leading up to 1997 on Undermine, and like that was the thing about the funk. It was like the funk just was there for them to go back to constantly as this kind of continuum of the way that they were going to jam. In 20, I guess it was 2013, the wingsuit year, they did they had like a theme going that was a little bit of like a plinko thing, but it was like with Fishman and it was like a reggae. I'm forgetting what he was saying, like bush kush, and like going back to that constantly. And then on this tour they had this hello, how are you thing, which is just like every time they did it, the audience got it more, and it was more hyped up, and it was more like, all right, we're still in this space of like the theme of the tour. And they did it a lot throughout this whole set. I will say this was probably the weakest set of the whole run, in my opinion. Starts out really strong, but then kind of settles into like standardish first set territory, except for I Always Wanted It This Way, which goes pretty deep and was indicative of how heavy the synths were going to be on Halloween.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, that just shows, like you said, how good this whole run was. That's probably the weakest set of the run, because
Yeah.
there's a lot going on there. But I think you're probably right. Okay, so Linda, hey Linda, she asks if there was a theme for that night. Dyadic connections, relationships. I don't know what that means, and some people probably do, but I don't. But like, do you guys think there was a theme?
I never thought there was a theme.
Yeah,
But
same.
I mean, I don't know. I guess, looking at it's hard for me to see a theme like looking at that. I don't know what diactic connections means, but I'm trying to think of what things are related in the set list. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
Linda, send us a message or post or something elaborating on that, because I'm curious. Oh, pairs,
Mm.
exchange, interaction. All right. Well, it's over my head, but we got interesting. Okay. All right. I got to think about that. So this second set, I mean, I don't know why. Like, I keep getting these tweezer fests every few shows I go to. It's really great, but this tweezer is just I mean, I say this every time, but I feel like this tweezer is just masterful. Um, it's got so many different segments, and it is like going with a lot of these effects. But then there's there's like melodic parts there. It's not all just like heavy synths and electronic sounds. It's just, and this whole set is just incredible. I love this set so much, but I guess that's all I can say about it. So what do you guys have to say that is more articulate than that?
Second set Reba, always a really good sign of a second set. It tends to be a little bit more inspired, I think, when they play it in the second set, at least these days. And I was really surprised that, as far as I know, this is the first time that Sand and Tweezer have ever kind of been paired up together, which is surprising given that they're both in the same key. And obviously Trey, went there first, kind of like dipping his toes in the water, and then just going full bore back into Tweezer. So that was definitely a highlight. And you're right, RJ. Like the Tweezer Fests are becoming more common now, but I find that they're not really running out of inspiration as far as like when to drop it. It's not really getting like stale or anything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that tweezer is 20 minutes, so like whatever happens after that is great. But yeah, I agree. Like even there's like 5 minutes of tweezer after the Sand, right? And it's still like it's not just to go back into the song. It's really pretty. It's pretty cool. Yeah, this whole set was just great. I love it.
And unexpected too. I feel like Funky Bitch is an interesting song to land in after Tweezer. I wouldn't have expected that at all. And I think it works. I mean, they sound really like energetic and punchy. And I think it's fun. I mean, this is a great second set.
Matt, do you put this night overall above the first night, or the first night at the top of the two?
The first night was definitely better.
Yeah. There's a lot. There's kind of like more going on.
Yeah. I mean, between the theme and how that energized the band and the crowd, and that trick of like how if they have a preset certain number of songs, they've got to jam a lot to fill in the space. It all just kind of came together, and the second night was fantastic, but I think definitely the weakest of the 3 nights, or the 4 nights.
Which is interesting, but sometimes I feel like Fish does better with constraints. Sometimes, like especially now, because they need that kind of like inspiration. So I think it's cool when they are able to find. I don't like to call it a gag because it's like so much more thoughtful than that, but it's definitely like them working within the constraint of something. I think it's inspiring.
Well, so I don't know. I didn't love the third night when I was there. I think maybe I was tired. Maybe I like stayed up too late the night before. Maybe I just couldn't like figure out the right place to be or something. But I mean, there's a harpua, and there's a lot of interesting stuff that happens in here. But musically, like there's so many songs that it was hard for me to like stay engaged for some parts of it. But I wonder. I mean, obviously, you guys probably disagree. So, what do you guys think of that?
I actually agree. I think this is a little bit more of like jukebox Fish to me. Like, there's definitely not the kind of like jamming and like I don't know experimentation, exploration sounding to me. Like, it definitely sounds a little bit more like they had to play a lot of songs. I mean, there's a lot of songs in this show. I think there are really strong moments. I really love the Your Pet Cat, Runaway Jim Piper. That section of the second set is just so awesome. That Your Pet Cat, one of my favorite songs, gorgeous, beautiful, beautiful jams, like rhythmic and easy, really nice peaks. And that whole section has really nice segues and is really beautiful. But I thought the first set sounds really kind of like the flow is missing for me. But great harpua.
Yeah, I think all of that is fair. And I've heard that from a lot of people that like, the theme was cool, but it wound up kind of having the opposite effect of like they tried to squeeze in too many songs. But in looking back at the set list, I think what sways it for me is probably the number of like interesting songs or bust outs that they played. I mean, playing like Big Black Furry Creature from Mars and Shaggy Dog and Dogface Boy, which is one of my favorite songs. I Am the Walrus. and that dog stole things. I don't think I had ever seen a dog stole things before, which was great. The highlight of the entire show for me was realizing as they were playing the final notes of Birds of a Feather, I turned to my friend Craig, who was standing next to me, and I said, "Holy shit, dude! Harpoo is a dog." And like on cue, they're like boom,
Yes.
ba, ba. We're like, yes, and it was a great Harpoo too.
Such
I
a good harpua.
I just love the whole idea of them like fucking with everybody and saying like, take out your phone, look up Instagram, and you're gonna see the album that Fish is gonna play, and like literally everybody in the
Did
room
everybody
like,
do it?
oh yeah, like you couldn't get like I couldn't even get a signal because like everybody in the room took out their phones at the same exact time and looked it up and were like, what the hell is going on? That was like an all-time like Fish,
Yeah.
messing with us moment.
What did he say the Instagram was? It was like Jimmy Poster Dad or something? Like that was what the Instagram he said to look at was. So
Yes,
funny.
something like that. I'm sure I'm still following it, but
Yeah, exactly. That's so awesome.
That's pretty great. That is pretty great. But I do think the there's a couple like standout jam. I mean, the Runaway Jim is pretty cool. There's some good jams in here. I think I had to write the Fishnet review for this the next day, and I was just sort of like, man, I don't even really know what to say besides like, you know, there's a lot happening here. But the
Stuff happened.
again thematic night. Matt, is there any segment of the third night that you go back to or that you would go back to?
I haven't. I had to refresh myself on these shows. I really had not listened to them a whole lot, even though I loved the whole run. But I feel like in the last couple of years, like there's been so many high quality shows that, in years past, like maybe 2012, you had like maybe like 4 or 5 shows that were like really, really killer and were natural to go back to all the time. But, in the last few years, like it's just kind of grab bag. Like I could listen to any show and just get something amazing out of it.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting what you were saying about being there and how when you're getting songs that you don't hear a lot or songs that you've never heard, like that makes the night special and better for you, right? So I bet a lot of people felt that way after the set list.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's a lot, like you said, Matt. I mean, Dog Stole Things and Harpua, and I think people got a lot of songs that they had never heard live before. I think that
Mhm.
was, I mean, that was definitely my first Shaggy Dog. I mean, given that it has only been played like 17 times and mostly in the 80s, so they're
Yeah.
like padding your stats at a show like this. Um, I Am the Walrus was a pretty surprising. That was a surprising one. I guess not. Once we realized that it was a animal theme, but just there's some good bust outs. Now that we're talking about it, I guess there are some moments there to kind of like anchor the show. So what happened, Matt? What happened during the day on the 31st? I think I guess we all got the info on we got the comic book when walking in, or had it already
Yeah.
been leaked?
Well, it was walking in, but I don't think either of us went. I know for a fact we were not among the first people in the venue, so we kind of saw pictures of it on Twitter and whatnot, and then got to actually like read the thing when we got in. What happened during the day was the infamous incident where the Park MGM security broke down my door to wake me up so that I could remotely unlock the front door to my house and let my wife and daughter back in, which is a story for another time, but it was really
Wait, I
exciting.
want to hear more about this. They were locked out and they had to break.
I'll try to condense it as much as possible so we can get back to the music. But
Oh no, we've got time, Matt, please.
so we have like a smart lock on our front door, and we were having a little bit of an issue where sometimes like it wouldn't automatically open when you came back and punched in your code or did your thumbprint scan. It would kind of like catch on the thing. And it was Halloween, right? My wife took my daughter to ballet class. They came back. She had to get changed into her costume to go out to the like neighborhood costume parade. And I had switched rooms the night before, which is a whole nother story. But like I was in a brand new room. We stayed up ungodly late that night. I mean, I think I went to bed at like 5 or something like that. And then woke to this pounding on the door, and the door flies open, and I hear this voice in the dark, and it's like, "Are you Matthew?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "You need to call your wife." And I was like,
No
"What?"
way.
He's like, "Call your wife right now." And they left. And so I looked at my phone, and I had put it on do not disturb, but I had like a million like text messages and missed calls and stuff. So I was freaking out thinking that something horrible had happened. And then
Yeah.
I called her, and she was like, "Yeah, the lock doesn't work and we need to get into the house." And so I just like pulled up my app and unlocked it. And she was like, "Okay, cool. Talk to you later." And I went back to sleep. But it was like the weirdest. She had apparently like been calling. I think she called you, RJ, right? Like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. She was calling me and like texting me, and she was like, "Do you know what room he's in?" And I'm like, first of all, definitely not. Second of all, even if
No.
I knew what room he was, it's like in one of the 12 towers of one of those casinos. Like, I have no
Yeah.
idea. There's no way I would be able to find it, even if I was like, even if I knew the room number.
yeah.
Which I didn't.
But you also couldn't get to it because it was like that COVID thing of like you could only go to your floor with your
Yeah.
key.
Oh, right.
So
So you
Yeah.
have a
There was no
key.
way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
if I had been in the same room that I was the 2 nights before with our friend Craig, then he got texted, he got woken up, and he could have just like poked me or something like that. But yeah, nobody knew where I was or what was going on. And she called the hotel, and eventually they were like, "The only thing we can do is like do a wellness check to make sure he's still alive." And she was like,
Oh
"Okay,
my God,
go
that's
do
amazing.
that." So
She's like, that
I
would be
have,
good too, actually. Maybe we need that too.
yeah, I have since fixed the lock.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's good of you. But that was, and we also did daytime recordings and streams at Brooklyn Bowl, Las Vegas. We had a lot going on. It was a wild weekend.
It
And
was.
By
those
the
are
fourth,
exhausting, especially when you're out late all night. It's like
I mean, I
Atlantic
was
City. I was like
exhausted.
so
I was
tired
exhausted
after.
by the end. By Halloween night, I was definitely exhausted, and then we had a whole 3-set show to go, which is pretty wild. Megan, do you have thoughts on the Halloween sets?
Yeah, I mean, there's some things that stand out to me, especially like the ghost, I think is incredible. I mean, it sounds so easy, effortless. I love when it gets like super dark. And then Trey comes through with the like hopeful and, notes, and the piano is gorgeous. It's really pretty. Builds some like really beautiful soundscapes. I also really love the Carini. I think this is like such a power move. Like I'm skipping Sci Fi Soldiers on purpose, but I love the Carini. I think that like opening a third set with Carini after just doing this huge production is such a power move. It's like we still have all this fucking juice, even though we've been going for days and pulling out all of these like themed shows for you. We just did this amazing, elaborate, crazy new music set, and we still are going to come out and just like rock Carini. And it's only 13 minutes, but it has like, it goes places. Like it accomplishes a lot. It's really, really good. And the Soul Planet, I love it. I love the like Sci Fi Soldier quotes. It's really spacey, psychedelic. It's awesome. And then I want to hear you guys talk about set two since you're both there before I do. Because I think it comes off so much different if you're at home
Yeah,
than if you're there. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we had no idea what to expect. I will say, like the 27-minute or whatever ghost in the first set was just, man, that was awesome. And the third set, a couple of those highlights. I got to watch the third set with the crew from No Simple Road, which was really fun. And by that point, it was just like, yeah, everyone was so exhausted and had been up for days, and we were still had to keep going. I don't know. I don't know what thoughts I have on the second set. It was just so strange. Like it took me a long time to like wrap my head around it. Like we went to Matt and I were at the 2018 Halloween, and to me that was like much more like all those songs kind of made sense to me at the time, and they kind of like
Yeah. They're
went
more like
together.
poppy, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and like really catchy. There were some like good earworms. This was just like I didn't really know what was going on the whole time. There was like some dancing and some weird outfits, and it was pyrotechnics. It was wild. You might have a better memory of this than I do.
Yeah, I mean, I think this of all the Halloween things that they've done, sorry, bad grammar there, was the most you had to be in the room to really get it set. When I came home and I watched the video of the stream, it was like it didn't really translate very well.
Yeah.
But being in there and seeing, because there was a lot of, like the way that they came through, down through the portals in the beginning, and some, like the one point there was like fire and there was lasers, and their outfits looked crazy, and those things moving around behind them, the shapes moving around. It was just very, very bizarre. And musically, yeah, it made sense that this was the culmination of what they'd been doing throughout the summer and fall, with some of the more synthy and Trey's kind of Jedi sound, and the samples that Fish was playing throughout the whole tour. Like suddenly they were integrated into the music. The one thing that kind of blew my mind, I think actually like taxed a lot of people at the end of 4 nights. This was a long set for a middle Halloween set. I off the top of my
Yeah.
head, I want to say it was like 2 hours long. And the first third sets weren't short. I mean, this was, I might be making this up, but I have recollection that we were walking out onto the strip after the show and it was like 2 a.m. or something like that. Like
Oh
it
my
went
God.
really,
That's
really long.
crazy.
Yeah. So it was a little bit grueling at times hearing that much new music. And also they were just jamming a lot. A lot of these new things they took pretty deep. And it was weird. A lot of it was difficult to kind of get. It was in the Halloween world. It was like a little bit more like, weird and almost scary at times that they were doing this stuff, but there was like a lot of humor injected in it as well. The second half of the album or the set, I think drags a little bit. It's definitely front loaded with the better songs, probably with the exception of Egg in a Hole. But I haven't gone back to this a whole lot past the few weeks afterwards. And even at that, I wouldn't sit down and listen to the whole set. I would kind of cherry pick the stuff that I really, really liked, like Knucklebone Broth Avenue and Clear Your Mind. So it was very weird, and I think it was great for what it was in terms of like performance art in the moment. I don't know that it was as much of a like it's gonna stay with their repertoire like the way that you said RJ the Cast by Vox was, because it was just like they just felt so much more natural to drop into a Fish set. Though I will say that like some of the songs that they've kept playing have definitely gotten way more interesting. I wasn't even much of a fan of Don't Doubt Me that night, and then it's grown on me. And when they played it at Dick's, in September, I was blown away at how good it was and how much the entire crowd was like super into it. So I think that they recognized like what the strengths were, and they just kind of let some of the other songs kind of fade into the distance.
Yeah, I feel like definitely I've been impressed with how these songs, some of them have fit into sets. And I think The Howling has been super successful. When they played it at MSG in April, I was on the floor. It was the first night and it rocked. I mean, everyone was just throwing down. Like it was, just super dancey, funky, like throwdown. It was awesome. I think I agree. I think that like Clear Your Mind is great. I think that like the Inner Reaches, that song is like very fishy and like there's something very charming about it. It's a little like softer. And I think there's some moments in this set that are really interesting, but it's hard to listen to as just like a one-off thing. For me, it's hard to put on. Like I think it'd be hard to play for someone that didn't get Fish at all because it's very weird.
Yeah. It's something. You're right about how long it was, man. I think it was definitely 90 minutes or
Wow.
possibly a little more. So that's a really long time. And like you said, it started. I mean, the first set wasn't short either, and then we had a whole third set. So it was a long day. Yeah, they played a couple of the songs, like Mexico. They played a couple of the songs. I think they're not going away. So I'm just like I'm letting them marinate. Just like I'm just living with them. The Howling is to me like just because it's fun. I think they played that in Mexico, and that's fun. I mean, there's a little bit more like it's simple and it's fun, and it can kind of like, but it also jams, which is cool. So Did you guys think that they would drop this studio version? Like, did anyone think that was going to happen? And like, it seemed like a total out of the blue, out of the blue to me.
Well, I don't know anything. I'm always like the last person to figure out anything. So to me, I was like, "Oh my god, this is such a surprise." I had no idea. And it was I was excited to hear it. I mean, it's a short album. It's like 30 minutes. It's totally different. I want to know more about it though. I want to know like where it was recorded and when they recorded it cuz I'm curious.
Yeah, so I can I can probably share this. I don't think I'm selling anybody out here if I share this story. So last year we made Alive Again, the podcast with Trey, and talked to a number of people that were in his inner circle, and we kind of divvied up the interviews. And one of the people that I personally interviewed was Bryce Goggin, who's the producer who's worked with him a number of times. And I actually didn't even realize how frequently he works with them on just stuff in the barn, like for example, they recorded an entire album for Hands on a Hard Body and like what that was going to become. And like Bryce was the guy that was up there in the barn recording with them. And I reached out to him to schedule his interview, and he responded. He said, "Okay, I can't do it next week though, because I'm going to be up in the barn working. Let's do it the week after." I was like, "That's cool." And he said something during the interview about like, "Oh yeah, like when I was recording the Halloween album with them, for example, blah, 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 blah." And I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." And Trey happened to also mention something like in the next interview we did with him about like, wink, wink, we might do another one of those things. So I was like, all right, well, I'm just going to sit on this knowledge. I'm going to tell people, I'm going to tell my friends that I know what they're doing for Halloween, but I'm not going to tell them anything else. And they're going to bug me for the next 6 months to tell them what's going on. So I'd get texts randomly from people like over the summer, and, they'd be like, "Oh, it's going to be, Led Zeppelin, isn't it?" Whatever. So I knew that they were doing something like this. They had done the same thing with Casvot Vox, and you can see that in the credits of Between Me and My Mind, that they're working on the Casvot Vox. It's essentially demos so that they can learn the album and record it. And so I just thought like whatever they were doing here was just for their own reference. It would never make it out or anything like that because they hadn't released the studio Casvot Vox. They were, the version that came out was the live version. So I was very, very surprised when it came out the other day. Not that I didn't know it existed, but that this is somewhat unprecedented for Fish to release, essentially demos or like work product that they've cleaned up. It's really mixed well. I'm guessing Bryce mixed it, but I don't know. But like, they haven't really done this. Like there's a lot of other bands that have been around as long as they have that have released like deluxe versions of albums with, bonus tracks, other takes, demos, all that kind of stuff. And they haven't dipped their toes in the water that much. The exception being Trampled by Lambs and Pecked by the Dove, which is kind of like, the Tom and Trey album. So I think it's kind of cool to see that happening, that like, I guess they felt confident enough in these demos to put them out. But it kind of marks a start of a new era almost for me.
That's so cool. I didn't realize that was recorded prior to the live show.
As far as I know, and I
Mhm.
don't have this completely confirmed, but putting together the pieces that I knew about the conversations I had, and this was in March of 2021, kind of knowing that they were working on something like that.
But it totally makes sense too, though, if they would have had that, because these are kind of like shorter versions of all of those songs. And then they spent the whole summer and fall jamming, inspired by these sounds and these songs. And then when they play them in Halloween, they're like ready to jam them. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because like, if you're thinking about it their way, like if you're going to cover an album, the album has to exist first, right? So you got
Yeah.
to create
Yeah. You have
the
to have like a
album.
reference point. Yeah.
And then also, they, in listening to the demos, some of the songs I think like sound a little bit better on the demo, particularly some of the ones with like more complex rhythms that were a little bit
Yeah.
trickier to play live. But there's also stuff like that's missing or has been changed completely. They changed a lot of lyrics. They added a lot of lyrics. Thanksgiving is like 1 minute of "It's a Shame About the Blood," and then they don't do any of the like the funny back and forth with the lyrics that they wound up doing at the show. So it's cool to compare that of like where where it started and then where it ended up at the show. So that's been a fun listen.
Yeah, I was listening to that. I didn't ask for this on the studio album, and Fishman's drumming is just unbelievable. I mean, it's worth listening to just for that. It's incredible to hear him on these demos. It's so cool.
I didn't know that was a song on the album, so I guess I need to go back to this. Um,
Maybe that's not the name of the song.
no, but
Is
it
it?
could be. It could be. There's a lot of like there's a lot of stuff in here that still haven't like wrapped my head around. I think the album will probably take me further. I did, Matt. We did a bonus episode last week where we talked about um, like our most commonly seen songs and our least commonly seen songs, and we got into the the stat, the 50% club, where you've seen 50% or more of a particular song, and I've seen 5 out of 8 versions of the Howling. So I'm on track for the Howling. It's definitely going to happen over the New Year's run, one of the nights that I'm
Yeah,
there.
you're definitely going to hear it again. Yeah,
But I'm
exactly.
into that. What do you guys think? I mean, what do you think of the album? I mean, is it something that you'll revisit?
I think it's a little bit easier to consume because it's only 30 minutes and not the like full stretch out version that they did live. So I'll probably listen to it a little bit more. I find myself already almost kind of like I did with the Halloween set, just kind of cherry picking the songs that I already know that I like. And it's weird because like my favorite song from the set that night was "Clear Your Mind," and I don't think it's very good on the demo. But conversely, like I think Bone Broth Avenue and Get More Down sound way better on the demo because they're kind of complex polyrhythmic songs. So it's a curiosity. I mean, I like going back to stuff like this and seeing how they, evolved in the creative process.
Yeah, it's just really interesting. It's not my cup of tea. I was texting with RJ beforehand, just saying that I'm really grateful for Tom Marshall and his contributions to Fish because I think lyrically this album is is definitely interesting. It definitely has that group think vibe. It's definitely like it sounds like they're just having a lot of fun, and it's very self referential and like funny. And I think that it is creative how they were able to tie in like so many of their stunts and gags and the Casbah box. It's kind of got this whole like, all this stuff kind of combined, all the mythology, a lot of the fish mythology, which I think is pretty cool. But definitely interesting. I think there's some songs that, like you said, Matt, I'll probably be cherry picking. I think it was "Don't Doubt Me" that I was thinking about before, but I really like that one. I like the Howling. Yeah, there's a couple songs that I think are definitely really fun to hear live, but I don't know how much I'll listen to the album, but it's pretty cool. And 30 minutes is a great length. I can actually do that.
Yeah, you touched on something that I kind of forgot, which was one of my big impressions from the show when we were at it last year, which was that like with the comic book and everything, I felt like they were creating the new Gamehenge, right? It's like
Yeah.
there's Gamehenge the story, but really like there's all these songs and characters from early Fish songs, like they just sort of exist in that universe. And I think they've kind of done that now, which is like Asvat Vox guys, play a part in this, and now Sci Fi Soldier thing. So maybe there's going to be something else to add on to that and expand this sort of like sci fi world of Fish, which could be really exciting over the next, however many years they keep playing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love that.
man,
Lets us nerd out.
they keep adding to the rich like tapestries. It's pretty wild. Um, Matt, I think you and Megan maybe both have heard this on the Undermine episodes where we've talked about Halloween '94 and '96. We asked the guests, do you think they'll ever do a cover album again, like a cover someone else's album again? What do you both think at this point?
I would have said no prior to Ziggy Stardust. I felt like they were kind of done with that once they did the Chilling Thrilling. Um, Obviously, the David Bowie set was like, special because he had passed away that year. So maybe it's going to take something like that to do it again. I don't think they're that interested in doing that anymore. That's kind of the sense that I get from things that they've said in interviews, over the past couple of years. I think approaching it this way is way more kind of mentally stimulating. Because there was something about like I don't know the details on this, but the Halloween that was canceled in 2020, what I've heard was that the plan was actually to release Sigma Oasis on Halloween, and it was going to be
Oh,
somehow linked
wow.
to the show. And then they changed their plans because of COVID. So I think whatever they do, they're going to use Halloween as a way to like output new stuff into the world, rather than just say like, oh, okay, you know, we're going to play a classic album and everybody's going to know it and sing along.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's probably fair. Megan, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Matt. I think that they're so inspired still. I mean, they're making so much new music all the time. It's just actually kind of insane. And I think that they're just always looking for a reason to make a new album. And I think it inspires their playing. And I think they know that. I mean, I think that after 2021, it was very clear they had such a strong summer and fall that it was, due to Sci Fi Soldier and the creating that music. So I think that they're definitely always kind of looking forward now. I mean, never say never with this band, right? You just never know. But I
I
would
mean,
assume probably not.
I think, the Casbah Vox album, and I remember watching that live. Or sorry, not Casbah Vox, the Chilling Thrilling. I was at the Casbah Vox. Both of those, but especially Chilling Thrilling. I mean, that was amazing. That's up there to me with like the top 2 or 3 Halloweens ever. And I think like that, where they're just creating new grooves, like that is like a fan's
Yeah.
dream, because I mean, the lyrics, like the lyrics can just be part of the story, obviously, like they were with Sci Fi Soldiers, Cast 5 Vox. But to have like instrumentals that are just there to be, played with is like pretty awesome. I would love to hear something like that again. I mean, if they're going to cover an album, I guess they're going to cover, if they ever cover an artist, it's going to be King Gizzard, because Trey
Clearly.
loves them so much and they have 300 albums to choose from. So, like, you can go in that direction. What do you think? Which
I
one,
would
Matt?
be,
Which of the 50 albums?
oh man, it would either be Mind Fuzz would be my choice because that's my favorite Giz album and it would be a rager, or they would do something crazy like play Nonagon Infinity and they would just keep playing it over and over and over and over and over again, and people would just be standing there for like 8 hours and they would just keep playing Nonagon Infinity until everybody left.
Oh my
That
God, let's
that
hope that doesn't happen. That sounds really intense.
oh, it'd be
Someone's
great.
gonna someone's gonna someone's gonna need to be carried out of the arena. Um, so this was really fun. Thanks, Megan, for putting it all together.
Yeah, this was fun. Matt, I'm so glad to have you on. This was really fun. It's good to see you.
Yeah, it's always good to be here, and I always tell RJ, all you have to do is ask. I'm always here. I'm
Be
in the
careful what
background, driving the Osiris machine, and you just have to get me to like take a shower and be ready to be in front of a camera, and I'm all good.
Awesome. Thanks for showering for us.
Yeah, careful what you wish for, Matt, because
Exactly.
could happen sooner than you think.
Awesome.
Awesome. RJ, do we need to remind our listeners about Sunset Lake CBD?
Yes, we do. Do you want to, or do you want me to?
I'd love to. Sunset Lake CBD's line of smokable hemp products are for the old deadhead or for the young fish fan or for the sci-fi soldier fan, anybody searching for a mellow body high. Smoking CBD has all the benefits of high THC cannabis, but without the paranoid and anxious side effects. They've got 9 different strains from this year's harvest, so there's something for everyone. There's Hawaiian Haze, there's Cherry Abacus, and all their flower is grown, cured, and trimmed by Sunset Lake CBD farmers. They also have an incredible farm to table approach, so they're going to ship their product directly from the farm to your door. Comes super fast. And I would definitely recommend, if you haven't tried them by now and you're an HF Pod listener, what are you waiting for? Sunset Lake CBD is the best. I love their sleep gummies. I also love their regular gummies, but the sleep ones are incredible. They have melatonin in them, perfect to just like send you off to bed to have a great sleep and help you when you can't sleep. It's a nice thing. I know now RJ keeps them close to his bed, right, RJ? In case you have any issues.
I do. I actually, the other
Yeah.
night, as a testimonial, I think it was like 4 in the morning. I woke up and I just like woke up and I'm like, I guess I'm awake now. And I took some Sunset Lake tincture and I went right back to sleep for like 2 or 3 more hours. It was great.
See, I also had a testimonial. Someone reached out to me and said, I just want to thank you. I stayed at a friend's house and I didn't know what to get them. And so I sent them a big package from Sunset Lake CBD and they loved it. And their dog is now really into the Sunset Lake CBD dog stuff. So
Nice.
it's a great gift if you stay at someone's house to send them a bunch of CBD. It's a nice thank you gift. So check them out today.
That is great.
Yeah. And use the code HFPOD and you're going to get 20% off all your products.
All right. Well, to this comment that's on the screen from our YouTube viewer came to play. Go Phils. Matt,
Yes.
I hope you enjoy the game. And we're gonna have you back on very soon because this is fun and we need you back.
I'm always here.
Awesome.
All right.
All right.
Thanks everybody.
Thanks for watching. Bye, everyone.